Light of the Bhagavad. We finished. So this is a review plus a nice story connected with the rainy season. Light of the Bhagavat was conceived by Srila Prabhupada as an opportunity to reach a different audience. It wasn't till many, many years later that he actually visited Japan. But there was 1961, there was a convention or a conference being held in Tokyo for cultivation of the human spirit. And he received an invitation, a letter of invitation to allow him to get a passport and visa. So he began the project of writing this book, Light of the Bhagavad, taking sections or images, portions of Canto 10, Chapter 20, Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the rainy season followed by the autumn season with descriptions of nature scenes in Vrindavan, and drawing from those nature scenes in Vrindavan lessons from Srimad Bhagavatam, or lessons of life from scenes of nature. The topic, the title of the book, As Brilliant as the Sun, comes from Canto 1, Chapter 3, verse 43. This is a verse spoken by Sutta Goswami in response to questions asked by the sages of Naimisharanya, who had gathered for the purpose of counteracting the negative effects of the age of Kali, because Krishna had just departed, and they knew what that meant. Kali Yuga was beginning, and the symptoms of Kali Yuga were already showing. And so they wanted to do something about this bad age of Kali. So their idea was to go to a holy place, Naimisharanya, and conduct a 1,000-year yajna, meaning as soon as one yajna is over, the next one begins, and so forth, for 1,000 years, to minimize or reduce the negative effects of the age of Kali. And in their midst was Sutta Goswami, who had just heard Srimad Bhagavatam in its entirety from Shukadev Goswami. And so they asked questions of Sutta, one of them being, now that Krishna has gone, departed this world, protecting religious principles, where will religious principles take shelter in this age of Kali? And the answer was given, Srimad Bhagavatam. Shortly after, nice image, shortly after the sun sets in the western horizon, on the east comes this moon, brilliant as the sun, giving light to this dark age of Kali. So this Bhagavad Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Now, it could be that religion, knowledge, etc. departed along with Krishna, or it could be the Bhagavatam brought religion, knowledge, etc. with it. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in this age of Kali shall get light. from this Purana, so light of the Bhagavata. Chapter 20 of Canto 10, Srimad Bhagavatam, is a description of the monsoon and autumn seasons in Vrindavan. And a class that I don't think many were able to participate in because it was one of our morning classes. There's one of the things that inspired me to take this up as a project was some reading, kind of like a dramatic reading of a passage from Kavi Karnapur describing the same scene. It's Canto 10, Chapter 20, but it's his poetic language. So a little background. Who is Kavi Karnapur? Kavi Karnapur was a contemporary of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His father, Shivananda Sen was his father, was a very elevated person. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was living in his earlier days, until his 24th year, he was living in Navadvip. And Shivananda Sen was an aristocratic gentleman and part of the area of Navadvip. And he was always taking part in activities with Lord Chaitanya and his associates. When Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, his mother requested him, don't go to Vrindavan, go to Puri. Krishna is also in Puri. And the devotees from Navadvip, they go every year to attend Rath Yatra. So if they go, then they can bring back word of how your well-being. And if you go to Vrindavan, they may never see or hear of you again. So please go to Puri. So to oblige his mother, he went to Puri, stayed there for a short while, and then some months later, he made a tour of South India for 2 years. When he came back to Puri, a messenger was sent to Navadvip. Mahaprabhu's back. Come for Rath Yatra. So the person that was in charge of all these devotees, because there weren't trains or just, so 350 people traveling for a month by foot to go from Navadvip to Puri. And the person in charge of the group was Shivananda Sen. Very capable person, wonderful personality. He had 3 sons, and his second son was with his mother in pregnancy when she and he went to Puri. Mahaprabhu received them and gave a name for the child even before the child was born. Some few years later, when the child was born and just a little toddler, the mother placed the child before Mahaprabhu for blessings. And the child immediately scurried over and grabbed a hold of Lord Chaitanya's foot and started sucking on his toe. And everyone went, Haribol, Haribol. His name before he was born was Puri Das. And when he was just still very young, Mahaprabhu gave him a Krishna mantra. And then Lord Chaitanya one time, when he's just a little boy, say Krishna's name, and he wouldn't say Krishna's name. And he tried again and again, prodding the boy, wouldn't say Krishna's name. Then this question came up. It's just Krishna's name, it wasn't his whole mantra, but that's the way it reads. And Swarup Damodar said, I suspect the reason he's not speaking Krishna's name is because Mahaprabhu gave him his mantra, and he's not supposed to say his mantra in a public place. So he had spiritual discipline even as a small boy. When he was 7, think of somebody you know that's 7, he started composing Sanskrit verses and poetry. And everyone was appreciating, wow, this boy was amazing. So they gave him the name Kavi Karnapur. Kavi Karnapur. And when he was 16, he wrote his first book. And from there on, his life was very, very elevated as a great writer. So one of the books he wrote was about Vrindavan. And the book that he wrote about Vrindavan mirrors the 10th canto sections about Vrindavan. And one of his writings has to do with, very similar to chapter 20 of Canto 10. It's the rainy season. So if technology cooperates, I'm going to have you hear, there's a dramatic reading of the English translation of this section of his book. We're in Vrindavan. It's the rainy season. The author is Kavi Karnapur. The narrator is Shruti Russell, and then several devotees helped in putting the images together. So it's a video, and if technology works, I think you'll appreciate it. It's a description of the rainy season, like an overlay to 10th Canto, Chapter 20.
Every morning during the rainy season, Krishna remains inside with his parents, and the cows stay in the Goshala until the rain stops. And Krishna reciprocates with his parents by allowing them to cuddle and caress him. However, as soon as the sky clears, he runs to collect the cows and proceeds to the forest, along with Balaram and the other boys. During the rainy season, the peaceful green fields look charming under the deeply blue. Every morning during the rainy season, every morning during the rainy season, Krishna remains inside with his parents, and the cows stay in the Goshala until the rain stops. And Krishna reciprocates effulgent blue garments, and the calling of splendid restless cranes adorned her throat as a pearl necklace. The iridescent fanned tails of the dancing peacocks were like her beautiful hair. The rumbling of the clouds filled the forest with the sound of her delightful voice. The fragrant earth, laden with scent of flowers, was her breath. In the form of tiny raindrops, her gentle face was moistened with tears as she waited eagerly to present Krishna with fragrant garlands made from the tiny malathi flowers from her dangling creepers. Millions of Indragopas, or tiny little red insects, crawled all over the ground, and they were the red pigment that colored her delicate feet. Thus, the goddess of the rainy season pleased the entire world with her beauty and her sweetness. Overflowing with affection, she desired to serve Krishna in every possible way. Just as one gets relief from the scorching heat of the summer by taking the proper medicine, the Vrajavasis were delighted with the appearance of the refreshing rainy season. They felt that time, in the form of a magnanimous physician, had awarded them with the wealth of the rainy season. This season brought supreme satisfaction to the playful prince of Vraj. During this time, the cows ambled lazily along, sometimes lounging under the shady trees, while Krishna beautified the scene by sitting nearby on the root of a tree and singing a wonderful song. The cows looked lovingly at Krishna while munching the plentiful grass, becoming fully satisfied, eating the lush foliage as they moved very slowly. They walked peacefully here and there without any disturbance, while the constant swinging of their tails created a marvelous scene of pure, effulgent beauty. Upon filling their bellies, the cows lost all desire to eat, and they rested amidst the soft, cooling grass and slowly chewed their cud. Turning their gentle faces towards Krishna, they glanced at him with love and gratitude, and Krishna took great delight in seeing them. As the cows rested, Krishna and his friends absorbed themselves in playing ball with the Kadamba buds of the Kadamba trees. Meanwhile, exhilarated with joy, the clouds raced across the sky and broke into small pieces and gradually disappeared. Due to the increasing heat of the day, attractive pearl-like drops of perspiration formed on Krishna's lotus face. Although tired from playing, Krishna looked radiantly beautiful. On one auspicious occasion during the rainy season, the cows were grazing on the fresh, green grass growing in the beautiful valley besides Govardhan. Krishna sat on a throne made of smooth stones next to a waterfall flowing with fragrant water from the top of Govardhan Hill. Enjoying the atmosphere, he laughed and joked with his friends, who played a game using some small dark crystal stones. Then the boys began to push and shove each other, when suddenly a lightning bolt struck from the clouds above. It was as if the clouds cast an angry frown just to stop the boys from fighting. Becoming frightened, the boys ran away. But once regaining their courage, they returned. Again, the clouds loudly thundered once more. And once more, the boys ran away. Grabbing some branches and creepers from the trees, they waved them wildly in retaliation, pretending to beat the clouds. The clouds responded by drenching them with a quick downpour. When it rained, Krishna took shelter in the caves of Govardhan, sitting there, waiting for the rain to stop, biding his time. He looked like a beautiful baby elephant. The boys entertained this charming, enchanting person by playing games of shouting loudly into the caves and laughing at the echoes that reflected back with deep, angry sounds. They said, "Who are you? Who are you?" An echo returned, saying, "Who are you?" And suddenly the cave filled up with great clamor. Ordinarily, it is not very good to mistreat a giver of shelter. However, this irreverent behavior did not fault the boys, but it allowed them to please Krishna. Indeed, they blessed those caves with their presence. At such times, the joyful boys would paint designs on Krishna's face and body with colored mineral powders, and they would surround him and happily dance for his pleasure, while Krishna floated on a river of happiness. A rich fragrance of musk saturated the entire atmosphere. During the rainy season, Govardhan Hill is full of incredible beauty, with many sorts of fresh fruits and edible roots. Magically, Vrindavan simultaneously encompasses all the seasons at the same time, and hence always provides the opulence of all the varieties of fruits and flowers. Nevertheless, when the dates or other jungle fruits ripen, those fruits are especially abundant. Krishna relished the taste of all the items brought by his friends, whose hearts surcharged with happiness. In this way, Krishna enjoyed his pastimes on Govardhan Hill. Meanwhile, outside the cave, it appeared that the rain smiled with teeth of hailstones, falling everywhere. Krishna's young friends ran outside to pick up all the particles of ice and bring them back into the cave. With hands folded in Pushpanjali, they offered the hailstones as flowers to Krishna's lotus feet. When the rain stopped, the boys left the cave and ran to the top of Govardhan Hill, where Krishna sat peacefully on a beautiful emerald rock that glittered brightly, having just been washed by the rain. His friends fanned him with pure white chamomile flowers, filling the air with the fragrance of musk. Enchanting tunes and melodies echoed throughout the forest as Krishna played his flute, then twirling the edge of his yellow cloth, while admiring the remarkable combination of sky and land and forest. Glancing around, Krishna called his cows, "Hey, Hamsi! Oh, Harini! Oh, Vamsi!" response to hearing their names, the cows came running across the valley to stand close to Krishna. Due to the heavy weight of their udders, they moved in a crooked manner. And yet, as they got closer to Krishna, they galloped all the more quickly and trampled the grass under their hooves. Crying and mooing, the cows assembled around Krishna, and he addressed them, "Do not stay any longer." The cows respected the Lord's order, and they immediately proceeded to the valley. As Krishna walked home, it seemed as though he stole the minds of the various birds and beasts. They could not go with him throughout the rainy season. But now, all these forest dwellers accompanied Krishna and his cowherd boyfriends as they enjoyed various fun-filled pastimes along with the wonderful cows of Vrindavan. With great anticipation, the Vrajavasis awaited the return of Krishna and the cows. First, they saw dust in the distance, created by the hoofs of the cows. Then, they heard the cows bellowing. Next, they saw the gopas coming in front of the herd. And finally, they beheld the bright blue effulgence of the jewel-like prince of Raja. Overwhelmed with desire to lick their calves, the cows tried to run, but the heavy weight of their milk bags checked their forward movement. Upon hearing Krishna's flute, the cows produced a pleasing sound as they entered Vrindavan. The entire city had been bathed in the rainy season's showers. Now, after the rain, the proud peacocks, famous for their dancing ability, strutted about on the rooftops of every home with their long, thick green tails fanned out to dry in the sun. A splendid flag flying throughout the city like tender green leaves indicated the intense joy felt by the residents of Vrindavan watching Krishna's return. The heavy downpour produced mud puddles that were lying here and there, and the water mixed with sandalwood and rushed through the city to bathe the feet of Krishna and the cows as they returned. Entering the palace, Krishna sat down to eat a variety of palatable foods. After being lovingly fed by Mother Yashoda, he lay down to rest on a bed with sheets as white as powdered camphor. The sweet sound of buzzing bees hovering around filled Krishna's bedroom with a melodious sound. And thus, while enjoying the sweet fragrance of the aromatic herbs and dried flowers stuffed in his pillow, Krishna slowly fell asleep and passed the night.
Very soothing. The description of rainy season has some embellishments. We shared that the first evening. In Vrindavan, assisting Krishna's pastimes are two very important personalities. The Yogamaya personified, her name is Purnamasi, and the Leela Shakti personified, who is Vrindadevi. It's described by our acharyas that every morning before the pastimes of Krishna begin, Purnamasi and Vrindadevi get together and make a plan for Krishna's pastimes. Purnamasi makes the plan, Vrindadevi executes the plan. And Vrindadevi, maybe you've seen the deity of Vrindadevi on the western side of Nandagram, the furthest extension of Brajmandala, just before you cross on the other side of Brajmandala, there's Rajasthan. So Vrindadevi's temple is right there, and Vrindadevi has a cousin sister. Her cousin sister is named Barha, and Barha is the name of the rainy season personified. So when it's the right time, when the heat of the summer needs to cool down, Vrindadevi summons her cousin sister, Barha, to come and do her service for Krishna's pastimes. There's lots more to say, but so it's in the spiritual world, Vrindavan, when Krishna performs his pastimes, the whole of the spiritual world descends with him. Now there's an eternal Vrindavan that remains in its aprakat or unmanifest state, and that unmanifest state becomes manifest when Krishna brings his whole spiritual abode and his whole entourage and everybody and everything with him, indicating, we've discussed this during the light of the Bhagavata, all the entities, animate or inanimate, they're conscious entities. There's details and details, but the flowers, the river, the rocks, the trees, the everything and the everything, they're persons. Some in passive adoration, some in active service, etc., etc. So different rasas are there, but they're all conscious entities. And so there's the Radi season personified has her characteristics, and she has personified. It says, the descriptions of her, is that just as her cousin sister Vrinda has in her left hand a green parrot. You've seen pictures of the deity or just paintings of Vrinda Devi. She always is seen with a parrot. Her parrot has a name. The parrot's named Daksha. So when she, Vrinda Devi, and Purnamasi make the plan for Krishna's pastimes, Vrinda Devi gives instructions to Daksha, the parrot. The parrot has 100,000 sub-parrots, and they go in all directions to make all the arrangements for the pastimes for the day. As Vrinda Devi has a parrot that assists her in doing her service, so her cousin sister Barha also has a bird on her left hand, but it's a kokila bird, not a kokila bird. Chatak bird. Some of you that may be a little bit familiar with Vaishnav poetry, the chatak bird is used often. An image of the chatak bird is the chatak bird will not drink water unless water is falling from the sky. You've heard before? Chatak bird. So that's the bird that's in Barha's hand to assist her in her service. The imagery is very beautiful, and it's not just imaginative. These are personifications of entities that are to assist Krishna in his pastimes. So all of this is being described in very nice poetic language by Kavi Karnapur. And the whole light of the Bhagavad is taking some of that, the imagery, but the intention of Prabhupada, the author, was to teach lessons, not just create a beautiful scene for the people of this conference, but cultivation of the human spirit. So lessons one can learn from nature about what the human spirit means, what it means to cultivate, how to do it, what it looks like when it isn't there. And so it's very, very practical instructions from Bhagavad Dharma or Srimad Bhagavatam in terms of the rainy season, then followed by that is the autumn season, when the rain puddles dry, etc., etc. The rainy season spans for 4 months. We just finished the Kartik season, so now there's another season that's beginning. And in the month of Shravan, which is the first of the 4 months of the rainy season, there's a traditional festival that was held during the time of Radha and Krishna called the Tej festival. The Tej festival begins, the first fortnight is the waning moon, and then the waxing moon on the bright fortnight, the third day of the bright fortnight of the waxing moon, is the Tej festival. And the Tej festival, traditionally in Vrindavan, young ladies would go to their parents' home and spend 3 days with their parents at their parents' home and have a swing festival with their parents. So happy get-together. And so there's a very nice narration by a Vaishnav poet describing a pastime of Radha and Krishna on the occasion of the Tej festival in Vrindavan. So I hope you're ready for some nice pastime, because that's what this is. In this painting is a painting of a palace that was built for Radharani when she was married. A little background. Radharani and the gopis became known by the demons of Mathura. Rishta and Keshi both came to know in their not their bull and horse form, but by their activities and on behalf, because they're mystics, they could manifest forms. So they came to know of the beauty of Srimati Radharani, and they were suggesting that Kamsa should bring her to Mathura and make her his own. And so Shankachuta was sent by Kamsa, because Shankachuta was also in the service of Kamsa, specifically to bring Radha from Vrindavan to Mathura for his enjoyment. And that pastime is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's embellished in various ways by Rupa Goswami, but essentially Krishna stopped Shankachuta. Krishna and Balaram, the pastime was, as happens every year in Vrindavan at the time, and probably still today, on the occasion of Holi, there's some two evenings of activities. And one of the evenings is dancing with an accompaniment of musical instruments and singing. So Krishna and Balaram were with different groups of gopis, and they were engaged in such a pastime, and Shankachuta came along. And completely ignoring Krishna and Balaram, he tried to take away Radharani and the gopis, and some of the gopis. And they screamed for help. Krishna finished him. So Krishna killed Shankachuta, and Radharani has a grandmother. Radharani's mother and father, Vrishabhanu and Kirtida. Father and mother. And the mother of Radharani's mother, or Radharani's grandmother, was named Mukhara. There's a long description about Mukhara. But she, Mukhara, came to know that Kamsa's got his eye on my granddaughter. And Shankachuta came and tried to kidnap her. So she felt very protective. So Mukhara got the idea, two things. Radha should be taken from Vrindavan for a little while. Well, part two is I make an arrangement for Radha's marriage. She came up with the idea that Radharani should marry Abhimanyu. She consulted Mukhara, the grandmother, consulted Purnamasi, because she's Purnamasi. She's the senior Brahmana Mataji that everybody looked up to, and they didn't do anything without her sanction. She approved it. She approved it because there's various reasons, but essentially it enhanced the relationship of Krishna of enjoying with Radha, not in marriage. So let's step back. What's that? Within Krishna is everything. Say it the opposite. There isn't something that exists that's not within Krishna. Say it positive. Within Krishna is everything. So in the spiritual world, in Goloka Vrindavan, within Krishna is everything. And in the spiritual world, there's a marriage between Radha and Krishna. But there's also the propensity, because it's within Krishna, to enjoy outside of marriage. And so it's described by our acharyas when he appears in this world. One of the exhibitions that's within Krishna is Parakiya Rasa, enjoying with Radha and others and gopis outside of marriage. Now, it's a whole long description. These gopis that wanted to have Krishna as their husband became Krishna's husband by their expansions as queens in Dwarka. It's like a very involved description. So let's go back to Mukara wanted to protect her granddaughter. So it was Mukara's idea. Purnamasi agreed. And there was a wedding. And when there was a wedding, the father of Radha, named Vrishabhanu, he was very wealthy. So he built her a palace. And that's what's in the image here. And in her palace, it's the ancestral home of her mother-in-law, the so-called husband of Radha is Abhimanyu, and Abhimanyu's mother is Jatila. And Abhimanyu has a sister, Kutila. She's not married. And Jatila and Kutila play a very important role in Krishna's pastimes of making obstacles for Krishna and Radha to meet. It's a service, and it's part of the interesting, joyful pastimes of Krishna for Radha and Krishna to meet. So, for this Tej festival that happens during the bright fortnight of the first month of the rainy season, Radharani is in the upper room of her palace, there's a very beautiful description of what's inside this palace, how it was built by another Vaishnava, by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Very fascinating description. She looks out the window from the upper floor and she sees a banjara, which just means like a messenger. And he's carrying a big bag over his shoulder. And when she sees him, she starts to cry. And she loses control of her crying. And in this palace where Radharani lives, somehow many of the gopis are also sharing space with her in the palace. They have their own homes, but they spend more time with her than at their homes. So Lalita sees Radharani crying. And she asks Lalita, what's wrong? What's wrong? She's crying, very strongly. And she laments and saying, it seems that my dear mother and father have completely forgotten me now that I'm married. I haven't heard from them. There's no news, there's nothing. And Vishaka says, Radharani, don't talk like that. You must know, I'm surely you know, that they have such love for you. You're more meaningful to them than their own lives. So please don't talk like that. Please don't think like that. She said, yes, you're right. And that messenger, let's go to the window. See that messenger? That's what started me to cry. He's from Varsana. And maybe he can carry a message to my mother and father and find out if they still remember me. And Vishaka says, how do you know he's from Varsana? Radharani says, as soon as anyone in the vicinity, even when I'm asleep, I feel such surcharge of love and energy and strength and enlivenment. I know he's from Varsana. Can you bring him here? So her gopi friends bring him, and she then asks the messenger, do you know my mother and father? Do you know Vrishabhanu and Kirtida Sundari? They live in Varsana up on a hill. Do you know them? And my brother, Sridham? And he said to Radha, my dear daughter of Kirtida, your family is well known even in the heavenly planets. What to speak of a resident of Varsana like me? Surely I know your mother and father. Why do you ask? Radharani then says it again. It seems that they have completely forgotten me now that I'm married. I miss my mother so much. I cry at night. And my wonderful father and my brother and the loving talks, the very kind exchanges that we would have again and again. I miss them so much. Have they forgotten me? The Tej festival is about to happen, and I've received no communication from them. Should I come? Have they forgotten me? Can you convey this message to them? And he assures her, immediately, I'll go there swiftly and meet with your mother and father and convey your message. I'm sure you will see them very soon. He leaves. He goes directly to the palace of Varsana. He's invited in very cordially, politely by Kirtida. And what is the purpose of your coming to see me? So he explains, this is what Radharani is feeling. And she's crying and crying and crying. So Kirtida is taken aback. She immediately called for Sridham and made many gifts and nice cooked foods and sent them immediately, Sridham, immediately go with a chariot back to Yavat, where Radharani is residing, and let her know what our feelings are for her and that arrangements have been made for the Tej festival. She should come at once. So when Sridham reaches Yavat, Radharani has heard he's on his way. She sees him with the chariot. She comes running out of the palace and embraces her brother. And he has all the good news from their parents. They're wishing, here's some gifts, here's some edibles, here's some ornaments, here's some items for you. Oh, let me prepare something for you. And she goes to the kitchen and she does the Radharani cooking and offers very nice items. And she now needs permission from her husband, Abhimanyu, and her mother-in-law, Jatila, and her sister-in-law, Kutila. She wants permission to go with her brother to attend the annual Tej festival. And they're very suspicious, but it's an annual festival. It's 3 days. There's Sridham, her brother, and so they give permission. So Radha and some of her Saki friends go swiftly in a chariot back to Varsana, and as soon as she gets in the vicinity, Kirtida comes down from the hill and embraces her daughter, and Radharani embraces her mother and sits with her father. They have wonderful discussion, and exactly what's supposed to happen at the Tej festival. So Radharani wants to know, is there some arrangement for the swing festival, for the Tej festival? She said, yes. Your brother has already arranged at Prem Sarovar, a place not far from Varsana. And there's a swing all set up and a giant tree, and everything is waiting for you. Bring your gopi friends at once. The swing festival should begin. And so off they go to find the swing arrangements that were made by Sridham. And while Radha and her gopi friends are on their way to Prem Sarovar, there's Prem Sarovar, Krishna hears. And Krishna thinks, oh, this is a great opportunity to have some exchanges with Radharani. So he turns to his friend, Madhu Mangal. Madhu Mangal. Madhu Mangal is the son of Sandipani Muni. Sandipani Muni was his school teacher, and Madhu Mangal is his son of Sandipani Muni, and he's a Brahmin. So he's Krishna's Brahmin friend. He turns to Madhu Mangal. You're the most intelligent amongst the intelligent Brahmins. Just what Madhu Mangal wanted to hear. Surely you can come up with a nice plan where I can have some exchanges with Radharani. And he thinks, encouraged by Krishna's words, and comes up with an idea. And he shares this idea with Krishna. So the plot thickens. I have a good friend who just yesterday was married. And it's a tradition here in Varsana that the daughter-in-law is taken by the mother-in-law to meet Radharani and take blessings of Radharani for the success of their marriage. So let's go to see the mother-in-law of this this young girl. So when Krishna and Madhu Mangal are on their way to meet with the mother-in-law, she orders her daughter-in-law, don't look at him, because he has this way of just stealing the hearts and the minds of all young girls in Vrindavan. So don't even look at him. So Krishna came with Madhu Mangal, and hearing, don't look at him, she had to look at him. And when she looked at him, she fainted because of his beauty and his gestures and his whole demeanor. So charming, she fainted. And not only she fainted, but they couldn't revive her for some time. So the mother-in-law is all in anxiety about the daughter-in-law. And then Madhu Mangal whispers something in Krishna's ear, and he smiles. Because one of the things that Krishna does from time to time, with the assistance of Vrindadevi, remember Vrindadevi is yoga, is the Leela Shakti personified. Vrindadevi has all kinds of costumes. She has storerooms all over Vrindavan, and she can make Krishna whatever she wants, Krishna to whatever Krishna wants to be. So Krishna wants to look like the newly married daughter-in-law. So Krishna comes dressed like the newly married daughter-in-law and speaks in a voice like the newly married daughter-in-law and says, I'm ready. Should we go take the blessings of Srimati Radharani for my successful marriage to your son? Oh, very good. This is tradition in our village. Let's go at once. So over here at Prem Sarovar, there's the swing festival, and Radharani is on the swing. And the gopis are pushing her on the swing. And the mother-in-law with her, not really her daughter-in-law, it's Krishna dressed up like the daughter-in-law, instructs the daughter-in-law, don't speak too many words. She's the princess of Vrindavan. Just be very respectful and touch her feet. So Krishna, disguised as the daughter-in-law, comes with mother-in-law, and approaches Radha, and touches her feet and touches the feet of the other gopis. And the mother-in-law says, please give your blessings to my new daughter-in-law. She was just married yesterday to my son. Radharani says, all blessings, I'll make arrangements for gifts and so many things. Please tell me a little bit of your background. And Krishna, she wants to see her face. She has her face covered with a cloth. Krishna doesn't want to show his face behind the cloth. So he doesn't do. The Radharani says, oh, she's very chaste, very shy. That's okay. And tells the mother-in-law, we'll engage with her with the swing festival, and you can go back and we'll, with my friends, we'll take her back to your home by the evening. So mother-in-law's gone, and Radha says to the daughter-in-law, who is Krishna, come, I'll put you on the swing with me and we'll swing together. So Krishna's very happy. Good plan of Madhu Mangal. And as they're walking towards the swing, Radha is asking her many questions about her background and her parents' name, and the daughter-in-law isn't saying anything. So Radha understands she's very shy, it's okay. And sits the newly married daughter-in-law on the same swing with her. And the gopis start to push the swing. Now, by the arrangements of Purnamasi, this is a painting that one devotee did for me to illustrate Purnamasi. By Purnamasi's arrangement, the Yogamaya potency, the swing started swinging higher and higher and higher. And Krishna, speaking to Radha as if he's the young girl, I'm very afraid, this is so high. Please cling tightly to me. The gopis hear these words and they become really angry. Who do you think you are, instructing Radharani? You have no idea. You're fortunate enough to be sitting next to her. You don't give her instructions. However, the swinging went on and on and on, and Krishna then lunged at Radha and embraced her. So the gopis saw that, and they became so disturbed. They immediately stopped the swing and started to tussle with this arrogant young lady. And when they grabbed this arrogant young lady, his flute fell out. And then Radha became very angry that she was deceived. She entered into her Man Leela and became very angry. And Krishna went to her. He removed the veil, the covering of his face. And he spoke many words and tried in many ways, and her anger wouldn't subside. So he somehow got Vishaka and Lalita to try to assist to bring the anger of Radha down. And nothing would work. Even when they asked Radha to give up her anger, nothing worked. So I want to read this. This is very nice. It's right within the drama, or the Leela. Lalita suggested to Krishna, as a river takes shelter of two banks, it's poetic. As a flower takes shelter of two leaves, as a child takes shelter of two parents, and as rain takes shelter of two dark clouds. 4 images. In the same way, Krishna, you must take shelter of Sri Radha's 2 lotus feet by joining your 2 palms together and while shedding tears, apologize to her from your two lotus eyes. Krishna agrees. He comes before Radha and does exactly as Lalita indicated, and Radha's heart softened. Her angry mood subsided. The lover of the three worlds, the Lord of the three worlds is asking for forgiveness of her. And sitting on the swing with Krishna, she said, "Let us make this monsoon season successful and swing together now on that Kadamba tree where the cuckoo sings the songs of our meetings, where peacocks dance looking at your hair, thinking it is a dark cloud, and where bumblebees hover around us, making an umbrella above our heads." So Radha and Krishna are, this is before the swing is going higher. Here's some nice images of Radharani's lotus feet. Krishna is being asked to approach the two lotus feet of Radharani. So here's some nice, notice the peacock feather by her left foot. Radharani's two lotus feet by one artist. Here's another where there's a bumblebee hovering around her feet. This one devotee just sent to me a short while ago. It's very beautiful. So Krishna placed his two hands upon her lotus feet, and with his two eyes looking at her lotus feet, her anger subsided. And here is the divine couple sitting on the swing, enjoying this evening's Tej festival together. The section ends, they were swinging so high that their feet touched the crescent moon, high in the sky. At that point, Radha herself became frayed and held Krishna tightly, which became the source of happiness for both of them and the happiness of all their girlfriends. So that's Tej festival during the rainy season in Vrindavan. An opportunity for Radha and Krishna to have their pastimes together in the rainy season. There's many such wonderful, wonderful, wonderful descriptions of the loving exchanges of Radha and Krishna. So this is a little different. What we just did together is a little different than the nature of light of the Bhagavat, because the nature of the light of the Bhagavat was Prabhupada addressing a new audience that didn't know anything about Vedic culture and introducing not only Vedic culture, but there's different levels of understanding of the absolute truth, but all, etc., just all couched in the image of the rainy and autumn season. It was the purpose of that literature was different. This is to stimulate our appreciation of the greatness of the love of the residents of Vrindavan, the greatness of the love that Krishna has for the residents of Vrindavan, particularly Srimati Radharani. So let's see if there's anyone would like to make some comment or make a question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for so beautifully narrating the activities of Vrinda Devi and her arranging of Radha and Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. My question is about Vrinda Devi's Murti worship. So it's somewhat uncommon in our
Yes, it is.
in our movement. So my question is, because there is not a lot of information or instructions about it out there, if someone has a desire to engage in that seva, if first of all, if it is like permissible or endorsed by relevant authorities, and then second, I guess, how one would kind of, find more information and guidance on how to do it nicely.
You have unusual questions. It fits with Braja Rasa. Specifically even, Rupa Goswami was worshipping Vrinda Devi, the very same deity that's being worshipped today at Vrindakund was worshipped by Rupa Goswami. There's some history, but that's how that worship began. And it was done in conjunction with worship of Govindaji, or Radha Govinda. Later it was Radha Govinda, but Govindaji. And it's a Brajabasi mood. It's a mood for those who are at the stage of Raga Bhakti. So I most of us would probably not feel I'm at the stage of Raga Bhakti yet, so I need to qualify myself. And if there is a strong desire to have worship like the worship of Vrinda Devi, as is being done at Vrindakund, as was done by Rupa Goswami, it might be a good idea to go and live at Vrindakund and serve the deity at Vrindakund, if that was, a genuine transcendental desire. And once Raga Bhakti arises, then I don't know what regulations there are. Recently someone asked me this question. Is it okay to worship Govardhan Shila? Because similar but different. And there are specific instructions about worship of Govardhan Shila, and it's quite simple. But it is a Raga Bhakti type of worship. And so I won't go into naming names, but one devotee indicated that some years ago he was given a Govardhan Shila. He wasn't looking to get a Govardhan Shila. He was given a Govardhan. I'm just sharing here's some historical background on worshiping Govardhan, if someone had that occasion to worship Govardhan. So he was not inclined to accept. He didn't really have a desire, explicit desire to worship. But the devotee that gave it to him wouldn't take it back, and so he was wanting to know what to do. So at that time, Prabhupada disciple, he went to the Goswami at the Radharaman temple. Vishvambar Goswami was alive at the time, and Prabhupada said that we could request instructions from Vishvambar Goswami about items of deity worship. So this devotee went and asked him, what is the qualification, and is it okay to take Govardhan outside of Vrindavan, and worship outside of Vrindavan? Because, worshipping Vrinda Devi isn't standard, but there is in Vrindavan. So specific to Govardhan, he gave very simple instructions and said, yes, these requirements can easily be fulfilled in the West, so yes, it's okay. Now that's Govardhan, that's explicitly on the path of Ragamarg. Then step back and say, well, anyone that's a follower of Rupa Goswami is on the path of Ragamarg. very immature, but the path of Ragamarg, in the sadhana stage, but on the path of Ragamarg, because that's what Lord Chaitanya came to give. I don't know if this discussion is meaningful to the rest of the people in the room besides you and me, but yeah, you're asking the question, so I'm responding to your question. And I don't know if it's meaningful to everybody else. We're on the path of Ragamarg because we're followers of Rupa Goswami, but then for something like worship of Govardhan, there's explicit instructions. I don't know of any explicit instructions about worship of Vrindadevi, but the pujaris at Vrindakund will probably know what specific, if there are such things, as what specific instructions. But it would seem to me, this is conjecture, it would seem to me that one would have to be quite mature on the path of Ragamarg before entertaining the idea even of being qualified, what to speak of what are the regulations and procedures and so forth. Because deity worship has regulations and procedures. There's vidhis connected with deity worship. Even with Ragamarg worship, there's some procedures and regulations. So, to pursue that question, I would say two things. Become more spiritually qualified first, and become familiar with what Ragamarg means, what it looks like, and how it's to be cultivated. A very practical manual for that is Manashiksha. According to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Manashiksha is a manual, a padati for Ragamarg, for followers of Lord Chaitanya. So become very familiar with, and a good follower. First, become qualified. Second, is then go and spend some time at Vrindakund, if that's a strong desire, not something light, and actually learn with the mood and the procedures and this and that, and then see if it connects with what you thought it would be like, and then take the next step.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for another great lecture. In which are the scriptures do we find more information about Radharani, including the story that you just
including what?
The story that you just narrated.
Your question is, where do we find such literatures? It's not in Srimad Bhagavatam. To some degree, some of it is found in Padma Purana. For example, Krishna's return to Vrindavan as he promised, it's not in the Bhagavatam, it's in Padma Purana. After killing Dantavakra and his brother Viduratha, Krishna went to Vrindavan. And he spent 2 months and he did things. So now, what's there in Padma Purana is then expanded by our Goswamis. For example, Jiva Goswami wrote a 2-part book, Gopal Champu, describing when Krishna went back to Vrindavan after killing Dantavakra and Viduratha, what's in the Bhagavatam, what happened. And it's it's 2 thick books of what happened. Krishna. There were 2 disciples of Narada Muni who were introduced to Nanda Maharaj, and at his palace every day, these 2 disciples of Narada Muni would recite Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. Part 2, Krishna's pastimes out of Vrindavan. So there's details that are not found exactly in the Bhagavatam. One can say it's 2 things drawn from other scriptures besides, in addition to the Bhagavatam. Some of it's in the Bhagavatam, but in addition to the Bhagavatam. And the second is their transcendental realization. One of the verses in Brahma Samhita, Bhaktisiddhanta translates this way: Yadrashi yadrashi shadha siddhi bhavati tadrashi. So, yadrashi tadrashi. There's this, so that. So, yadrashi shraddha, according to faith. Siddhi bhavati, he translates it as realization arises. Tadrashi. So Krishna reveals himself to his dear devotees according to their faith. And when faith rises to a spontaneous stage, then things are revealed within the heart of such devotees. And they write them. Not everything, but they write certain things for our edification about what's not visible to us, but it's visible within their heart. So the Goswamis are examples of reliable sources because of their spiritual qualification, and they're being directly empowered by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to expand his teachings, which are the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. So they did, under his order, to do so. So writings is a good place to go for more such descriptions of the Goswami literatures, which is mentioned specifically in Manushiksha. The writings of the Goswamis are to be honored. Okay?
Just a small follow-up question.
Okay.
If I remember right, in Gopal Champu, it is also mentioned that Radharani and Krishna gets married. Is
Yes,
that
at the end.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes. It's a big ceremony. It's a big part of the concluding section of Gopal Champu. Which circles back to within Krishna is everything. Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So one appreciation and one question. So thank you for sharing this, because whenever I'm going to look at this image or DT again, I'm going to appreciate it.
Now you got to
more.
speak slower.
Sorry. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. I think what I'm saying, when I'm going to look at this image again, I'm going to remember
Which
this, like Radha Krishna on a swing.
You like this?
Yeah.
Okay. Me too.
Yeah. My question is this the first encounter? What you mentioned, Krishna meeting Radha?
No.
No. I was just curious, why Radha?
Why not? They're eternally, she is his Vladini Shakti. And as Krishna expands, she expands. From her come many expansions.
Okay, thank you.
Because that's who she is. She is his Vladini Shakti. There's a verse in Adi Leela, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 4, describing Radharani. One of the things mentioned specifically is, then it's expanded, but Krishnadas Kaviraj writes, Radharani, the expansions of Radharani include the Lakshmis in Vaikuntha, the queens of Vrindavan, and the gopis, the queens in Dwarka and the gopis in Vrindavan. They're all Radharani's expansions, or expansions of her expansions. Like, Krishna is the original personality of Godhead from whom various expansions come. But they're tattva-wise the same, but he's the original. I think I'm losing some people in the audience here. Is it okay? It's okay. A little confusing for some, I think. Anything else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, the video that you showed was very, very beautiful. The pictures in there were very unique for me. I haven't seen many of those, so it was the first time. I wanted to know the poem, the original. What's the name of that by Kavi Karnapur? Like we heard the English translations, which were very touching, but what's the name of the poem, and if we could find it?
I was advised, the person who I heard about it from was Borijan's wife, because she spoke about it last year during their Govardhan retreat, which was virtual. So I saw the video of the virtual presentation, and I was so attracted. So I asked her, and she was reluctant. And she gave the reason why she was reluctant, because there are parts of this particular book that it's not a good idea for devotees to read. I didn't press it. So if I say the title, then people may want to go and read it, and it's not a good idea. So it's a nice narration. But a very beautiful rendering of the Yavat palace of Radharani that was built by her father, Vrishabhanu. It's from Krishna Bhavanamrita by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. It's chapter 4 or something like that. So I can send that to you. If you like, I can send, the narration that this is, that she's reading, but I'm reluctant to go the rest of the way based upon what Mataji said. There's many more. There's many more. Because people know that I like, just like the last image of Radha's feet and she's walking away, you can see the markings. Somebody sent it to me. I didn't even have to look for it, because they know that that it's very relishable. It's inspiring. So some I find, some people send, some other people find. Anything else? Okay, looks like we're done for the evening. Now here's something for tomorrow. A or B. Tomorrow, on the schedule for tomorrow morning, 7:30, is questions and answers. And there was a request, if you have some questions you'd like to have discussed, send them into such and such place. And no one sent any questions in. So A is you send some questions in so we can have discussions on your questions. And B is I'll just do something else. I'm not like snotty or anything. It's just I'll do something. We'll read, discuss a verse from the Bhagavatam or something like that tomorrow morning. I haven't thought it through. Been a busy day. Something. Maybe some verses from Canto 10, Chapter 20. That's actually the verses. Because what Prabhupada did is it wasn't cut and paste. He took pictures or, pictures and words and then rewrote it to suit the audience he was addressing, leaving the essence, but to fulfill the purpose of the book. So maybe we'll go through some of that. I'm not sure what we'll do. So if you have interest to have some questions related to Light of the Bhagavat addressed, send them in. Whatever the procedure is, you send them in. If you don't know, find out. Jai Satchidananda will tell you what the procedure is. And that'll be our morning class. And if not, I'll do something else. And then tomorrow evening is the final breakout session, where it's that's like the setting of the number of people here, and engage in discussing what's your understanding and application of messages that you've heard in the final section, verses 15 to 30. Chapter, excuse me, not 15 to 30, 31 to 45. Tomorrow evening. And then I'm going to the next festival. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Also, I wanted to say, Hare Krishna. So, I wanted to express my sincere gratitude to Vamsidhari Prabhu. Prabhuji's getting embarrassed. So Prabhuji came here after being in India and then spending one day basically in Chicago and then flying here for the express purpose of enabling us to peacefully and wonderfully hear and see the Light of Bhagavat presentation by Maharaj. And he made, along with Snehvali Mataji and Chandrasekhar Prabhu, all efforts to make this process as smooth as possible, both at devotees' homes, at our home, and at the temple, along with lots of other devotees that have assisted. But Prabhuji's leaving, I think, tomorrow morning, and we're sad to see you go, but very appreciative of your wonderful absorption in the service and how nicely you do it. So let's appreciate Prabhuji's effort and mercy and compassion upon us with a loud Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Please come when you have a chance again. I also want to thank, we have wonderful guest and disciple of Prabhupada Maharaj, Shyam Sundar Prabhu, who came all the way from ISKCON Silicon Valley, well, from San Jose, to be part of the Light of Bhagavat presentation, to hear it. And he really relishes the opportunity to hear Maharaj and come and associate and to be with devotees. And fortunately, this time, Ashish Prabhuji was able to host you at his home. But please come again. I think Prabhuji is leaving tomorrow, right? So wish you a safe journey. Thank you for coming. Please come again when you get a chance, okay? Let's appreciate Prabhu's, leaving everything. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Thank you very much. Maharaj will be passing out Mahaprasada. Thank you very much.